So we hear a lot about smart kids. Smart kids always do well in school. Smart kids always get the best grades. Smart kids always get the best scores on exams. But what is a smart kid? My point of view is that there's no such thing as a smart kid. You refer to someone as smart when you see that they know things, that they're successful in achieving their goals, and that they're able to do it over and over and over. But people become this way by preparing. They study, they take the necessary steps, they plan, and then they strategically work towards their goals. And when you see that someone has done this over and over and over, such that it's a little bit easy for them and things progress without difficulty, we start saying, hey, this is a smart person. So smart people don't really exist. It's just people who work towards their goals in a kind of methodical manner in a way that achieves results. And they're people who have done it so much that they know what they're doing. What I'm telling you today is that you can gain the same skills and abilities as any quote-unquote smart person. Because a smart person is just someone who works towards their goals. So since you work towards your goals, the more you practice, the more others will start to think of you as this word, smart. Now, others of you might be thinking, well, what about intelligence? Is intelligence something I should be worried about? What if I'm not intelligent enough to be smart or anything like that? Well, frankly, from every report and every study that we've ever seen in the entire field of science, there's no proof or suggestion that intelligence is genetic. Intelligence is just a matter of motivation. If you want to become intelligent, you need to study. You need to read books. You need to listen to lectures. Anyone who does those things is intelligent, as long as they absorb the material properly. Now, many people may quickly understand concepts in a class. They may be able to spit out answers. But the difference between students who have 4.0 GPAs and students who don't do as well is not that the students who don't do well are unintelligent or that they're not smart, but they don't exercise motivation. No one anywhere in the world, not your family, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, even your teachers, no one controls your success but you. Now, many of you may be concerned about setbacks and what that means. You have to understand that everyone in the past or everyone in the future, everyone, you, me, anyone that you've ever met, fails at something. Now, what does failure mean? Failure means you didn't accomplish a goal. But does that mean that you're less worthy or less intelligent? No, it just means you have to change what you did to be successful. Successful people in the end have mastered the art of learning from their failures, using their failures to learn about mistakes and move forward. Some people use the emotional aspect and use failures as motivation to move forward and get what they want. Now, let's give an example here. Let's say you went to class every day, you listened, you took notes, you studied your notes, and on the day before the exam, the professor talks about some concept for maybe 5 minutes, and then the next day is the exam. And the exam has questions that are only directed to that 5 minutes of material from the day before. And so you don't do well in that exam. And if you want to fail again, you're going to say, okay, the pattern is that the professor only tests on the last 5 minutes of material. And you're going to take the next test, and you're not going to do well. The reason is you didn't learn from your mistakes. What you should realize is that all material is fair game for the exam. And maybe your professor likes to be a little bit interesting and test materials that seem less important. So the way to succeed is to study all of the material in a detailed way. That's how you'll get the good grades. Maybe the hard way, but it's the right way. Now let's go over an overview of what we'll be doing. We're going to talk about traditional studying strategies, probably things you already do right now, and why they don't work. We're going to talk about how to take notes, how to memorize your notes, how to use your notes, how to identify what you do and don't know, and then we'll move into how to use old exams and study pacing to get to your goal of getting the best possible grades. Then we're going to do the top 10 secrets of students that get the best grades. Now, what most people do is they'll read a textbook over and over. They'll read it cover to cover, up and down, every paragraph. They'll highlight their books. They'll highlight every sentence. They'll highlight their notes. If they didn't go to class or if they didn't take good notes in class, they'll compare their notes with their friends. Maybe the night before the exam or 2 nights before the exam, they'll pull an all-nighter. They'll stay at the library all week, just day in and day out, trying to read and read and read. Frankly, none of this is going to work, and this is not what top students do. Throughout the course of this presentation, we're going to be emphasizing study smart. Students who study smart do much better than students who study hard, and we'll explain the difference as we go on. Now, for studying smart, you have to take notes in your class the right way. I'm going to pause here for a second because I'm getting an echo. Can you all still hear me? Attendees? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So taking the notes in class the right way is really important, and you must actively engage the notes and use memorization techniques. We're going to talk about this in just a few minutes. So I'm just kind of going over a general list of how to study smart. You got to determine what the professor finds important and identify what you don't know, using old exams if your professor allows it to get ahead, and studying at a regular and normal pace without all-nighters to fill in your knowledge gaps. I'm going to talk over and over again about how I'm against all-nighters. All-nighters really are the last refuge of a student who's unprepared, and I don't want any of you to be unprepared. You're going to know each and every question before you take the exam, and you're going to do it through your preparation and your analysis and strategical activity. Now, how to use your notes incorrectly. We have to identify this before we can tell you how to do it correctly. Write down your notes in class, and then just ignore them until the week before the exam. When you do look at them, just read them over a few times, over and over and over, hoping and praying that you get it. And then highlight every word in the textbook, every sentence. Just go through a few highlighters and just highlight everything. And then borrow notes from your friends and see if you can do it again and don't ask questions. All of these things that I just mentioned are the wrong thing to do. I don't want you to do any of those things. I want you to sit in the front row of the class and every day write the class name, the topic of that class, the date, and the page number on each and every page of your notes. Create highly professional notes as if you are going to present these notes to the CEO of a corporation. And then as you're taking notes on what the professor is writing down on the board, write notes to yourself about confusing concepts, ideas you don't understand, other questions you may have, and also create notes not only on what the professor is writing on the board, but what he's verbally saying to you. And one of the things that a lot of students do these days is they use their laptop to take notes. And I'm a big fan of that. I think laptops are an excellent tool to get ahead in many of the classes if you use it the right way. The wrong way to use your laptop is to be browsing the internet or chatting during class. Turn off the internet. Close your browser, close your chat window, disconnect from the internet if you can, but don't do any of that stuff. Otherwise, you're not taking notes the right way. Your class notes can be more valuable than your textbook. And let me explain that for a second. In any given week, maybe you'll go through a chapter of material. And in your textbook, that could be 100, 200 pages. But your notes are only, 5, 10 pages max. But I'm here to tell you that the professor is the one that writes your exams, not the author of the textbook. The professor only tells you what he or she thinks you need to know to get a perfect grade on the exam. So what that means is the professor finds your notes to be the most essential and important material for the exam. You should use your textbook to fill in gaps. If you saw something or heard something in class that didn't make sense and there's no opportunity to ask the professor, use your textbook to fill in gaps of knowledge. But your primary source of learning should be from in-class lectures and notes. Now, once again, let me remind you, while you're in class, keep the internet off. Now, I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of laptops in classrooms because I believe that there's a software called Microsoft OneNote, and it's the best note-taking software in the world. Now, many of you take notes on paper and pen and all that, and you have folders and binders and notebooks. Well, those can be useful, but, you know, it's 2013 now, so we should be using the best technology. But use whatever you're comfortable with. Don't let me push you into using a laptop if you don't want to. Now, OneNote will let you organize your notes by semester, by class, by section, even by day. You can record lectures while taking notes if it's allowed by your professor. And what happens is the program will note every second of the lecture as you write it down. So you can listen to the lecture and the program will highlight notes as you took them during the class. It's a very useful tool. You can take screenshots of files, PowerPoint notes, or web pages if your professor is using them and just automatically store them in OneNote. You can store your notes on the internet, what's called a cloud, so you can access it from any computer. You can also take group notes with your friends, all in the same document, all at the same time. It's a very powerful tool. Let me show it to you. Now, this is a screen shot of OneNote, and it's a bit confusing here, so let me show you some targeted things here. Now, on the right are individual pages. What I've opened here are my actual notes that I took in law school. Now, on the right is pages, you know, individual pages. Week 1, day 1, week 2, day 2, particular topic, whatever you want. On the top here in the red circle is notebooks. Those are my different classes I had that semester. You can maximize the screen if you'd like, but that semester I was taking immigration law, constitutional law, property, civil procedure, quite a few notes. And the program automatically types in the date and time of your lecture. On the notes here, you can see I have some regular notes in the middle, and on the right, I filled in my notes with a pasting from Wikipedia, just for definitional purposes. On the left, there are different binders. This shows all the semesters I was actually in law school, fall of 2008 to spring of 2011. So you can keep track of your notes for years and years and have them all in front of you all the time in a digital format. It's very, very useful. Now, how can you actively engage your notes? How can you use your notes in a good way that's not just looking at them over and over? How can you absorb them and learn from them? Well, the most simple way is to engage your notes, to be active about it. In your own handwriting, rewrite each class's notes after class. Just use a pen and paper and just write down the notes. This is a bit of a memorization technique. The more you absorb the material in different ways, the more it's going to start clicking in your mind. For important or confusing material, put them down on note cards and start carrying the note cards around with you. Many times in college or high school, you'll find yourself wasting time. You're just sitting there waiting for your professor or waiting for a class. Just break out your note cards and you can start using them in a way that's useful and helps you prepare for the exam. After each class, realize that each class had a purpose to it. The professor or the teacher decided that there was going to be a topic that day, and they wanted you to learn that topic. Try to ascertain what that topic was and compile it into in the form of a question, and ask it of yourself. Actually write it down, and at the end of the session or the period before the exam, see if you can answer all the questions. The next step is you'll see what your notes have, and you're going to try and maybe be able to see what your notes don't have. See what concept the professor wanted you to learn, but you didn't write down in your notes, and try to fill it in by asking your professor and reading from the textbook. Study on a regular schedule. Don't wait until a few days before the exam. Don't do an all-nighter. I hate all-nighters. You know why? Because they don't work. You maybe learn it, maybe you were sleepy, maybe you don't remember it on the exam. How much can you actually read in one night? You can't read everything. you're not going to be able to do it, and your grades are going to suffer. When you do study, replicate test conditions at your desk or while you study. Sit at a desk, well lit, no TV, no internet, no music, no other distractions. Try to pretend like you're actually taking the test while you're studying. Environment matters. The more you can replicate test conditions while you study, the more you'll be able to remember what you studied during the test. Actively engaging your notes also includes engaging each of your senses while you study. When you read your notes, pronounce them out loud. Rewrite them. See if someone will read them to you. Engage all of your senses as much as possible to absorb your notes into your mind. Now, some classes, it's very important that you memorize your notes. You have, whether it's biology or chemistry or physics, you're going to have to memorize the notes in a way that you can just have that information available to you on the day of the exam. These are the techniques to do that. When you take your notes, you rewrite them, you recite them, and then you rewrite them again and again and again until it's memorized and in your mind and in your brain in a way that you can recall it in any circumstance. Reorganize your notes into different formats. Rewrite them. If your notes are an outline format, turn them into a paragraph. Write an essay about your notes. If it's a paragraph format, outline them. Just convert the format. Force your mind to start thinking about your notes in different ways. When you start thinking about a concept from different angles, it becomes easier to remember. Now, let me give you an example. I was taking organic chemistry, and you had to remember the first few prefixes of some of the nomenclature. And that was methane, ethane, propane, and butane. And for the life of me, I could not remember it. What you got to do is make a funny mnemonic, something that's so silly or so ridiculous that you'll always remember it. And for me, that was me eat purple berries. Methane, ethane, propane, butane. You can do this too in a very useful and productive manner that helps you memorize everything. Make flashcards and quiz yourself regularly. Another way to engage the material is to look at the mirror or talk to a friend and try to explain class material. This will help you hear your own voice saying the material, and if you can find somebody else to explain it to who asks a bunch of questions, you'll be forced to explain the material and understand it while you're explaining it. It's a very useful tool in understanding materials. Then give yourself a stress test. It's one thing to casually and comfortably, study your notes and remember material, but exam day is stressful. You're worried, are you going to be able to remember everything? You're stressed, maybe you're a little sick. So try to remember your notes before the exam while you're stressed. Do a stress test. When you're hungry or sleepy or upset at someone or something, see if you can use that opportunity to recall your notes. If you can do it in that circumstance, you can certainly do it on exam day. Now, one of the other techniques to really, push these notes and push these bits of knowledge in your mind are to associate memories with certain sections of your notes. Smells and tastes are the most powerful memories. So maybe you could eat a snack while you're studying, something that has an aroma, such as cheese or something else. And while you're studying and you're snacking, you're going to start associating those notes with that smell. And sometimes if you can't remember a particular note or a particular fact, what you can try and do is during the exam, try to remember what you were eating. And then you can access that memory that way. It sounds funny, but it definitely works. Now, inherent in the notes that are delivered in the class is the topics the professor is most passionate about. If you can understand what the professor really cares about, you will understand what will be on the exam. Now, sometimes the professor is going to try and hide what they find important. They're going to try and hide the material on the last day of class or the first day of class, or in the middle, or maybe they won't hide it at all. So sometimes the best strategy is don't just look for the one thing the professor wants you to know. Realize what the professor wants you to know is everything, and learn that. Study it all. Now, just we're kind of summarizing. Create notes of your notes in a reorganized format. Create an outline of everything you've learned from memory. Now, once you've rewritten your notes and you've done all the memorization techniques, go to a place where your notes, you don't have them, and see how much you can recreate just from the top of your mind. On the actual exam day, unless there's going to be a break where it's permissible to review your notes, just leave them at home. You're going to learn your notes a lot better if you feel like you don't have a safety net. And for a lot of people, the safety net is obsessively looking through their notes in the minutes before the exam. Don't give yourself a safety net. Give yourself the pressure and the motivation to really know that material at all costs. Now, one of the biggest mistakes is students tend to focus on exam aspects that they really know well. If you're taking a math course and you really understand a particular equation, you're going to find that you really want to practice doing that equation over and over and over, even though you know it. Same thing in chemistry or biology or English or any course. You're going to find what you really know well, and you're going to feel comfortable with it, and you're going to keep studying that even though you know it. That's a waste of your time. You should find out what material makes you uncomfortable, what you don't know, what you're having a hard time answering or understanding, and focus on that. Focus on it like a laser. Learn everything in the material by focusing on what you don't know. One way to find out what you don't know is try to teach the course material to a friend, someone who asks a lot of questions. Inevitably, if they're paying attention, they're going to ask you, well, what about this and what about that? And if you can't explain it, you've identified what you don't know. It's a very useful tool, and you're going to find that this is one of the main ways that you really absorb material. When you are in class, try to listen to the questions other students ask. If you can't answer each question the same way the professor does, you've identified another area where you need to increase your knowledge, where you have a knowledge gap. Quiz yourself on class topics and your notes. If you can give a 4-sentence answer to any question that you can come up with, you know the material. If you can't, then you need to study more. Now, old exams are something I'm a big fan of. They're the difference between an A student and a B student. Now, what are old exams? Old exams are exams from previous semesters from the same professor in the same course. They give you insight as to what the professor has found important in the past and the level of difficulty of each question. Some professors don't allow it, so don't cheat. Don't do something the professor doesn't allow. But if a professor does allow it, get a hold of every test you can and go through them at least a week before the exam date. This is really going to tell you what you need to know. Now, when you do it, research every question you get right. Maybe you got lucky. You don't want to get it wrong because you got it right for the wrong reason when you were studying. Research every question you got wrong. If it's multiple choice, this is great because you can see A, B, C, D. Only one of them is the answer. 3 of them are red herrings. They're meant to distract you, and they're the wrong answer. If you can understand why something's the wrong answer, you're going to have a much more in-depth understanding of what the right answer is. The questions will never be the same from an old exam. Never, ever, ever. Don't waste your time memorizing old exams. The professor will be the same. So look for patterns. Look for the questions you can't answer. Look for types of questions you can't answer. And compare your old exams to your current notes. Could your current notes get you an A on the old exam? If they can, you're in good shape. If they can't, you have to study more until they can. Get the knowledge you need to know. Examine old exams each day after class. See what day's notes were relevant to that exam. You're going to have a much more in-depth understanding of the course and the material and get the best grades if you can follow this methodology. Now, when you go to college, or high school, you really want to go to the library and hang out all day in very nice, comfortable lounge chairs and with your friends and everyone's at the library. And suddenly the library isn't a place to study, it's a place to socialize. If it's possible, study in the same room where you're going to be taking the test. I've really been emphasizing environment because one of the things that we've learned over the years is that when you're in a comfortable situation, you can perform better. And you become comfortable in the situation by repeatedly exposing yourself to it. So exam day during a test is a very uncomfortable situation. You can't talk to your friends. You can't look to your left, to your right. Somebody might accuse you of cheating. You can't take out your notes. You can't easily get up. So you're stressed. So try to make yourself as comfortable as possible with the test conditions by studying in the test situation, if that's possible. The more you can replicate that environment, the better you're going to do. Now, where do you not take a test? You don't take a test in bed. You don't take a test while listening to your iPod or a comfortable chair or watching TV or while you're playing on the internet. So if you don't take a test when you're doing all those things, you certainly shouldn't be studying while you're doing all those things. I know we're going a little bit over, but I promise to finish quick. The last few slides are very quick. Now, studying time and pacing. Study every day's notes every day. Don't pull an all-nighter. Make yourself a schedule. If you can make a schedule and stick to it, you're going to do a lot better. You're going to get the grades you need to get, which are the top grades, because you're going to be a top student. If you can set a schedule to do so, this will help you remain organized. No one has just one class at a time. And for some reason, schools like to schedule all your exams all at the same time. Setting a schedule and being organized helps you pursue a strategy where you can get top grades in all of your classes. Now, what do you do with a schedule? How do you make a schedule? Identify an outline of the topics you need to study to get an A in the exam. A lot of times, that's just the syllabus of the course itself. And then when you have that, create a timeline of what you'll study every day to be ready for the exam. I'm serious. Write down the date, the day, the time, and say, okay, next week at Tuesday, I'm going to study this topic for 2 hours, and then make a schedule in that way so that your schedule fits in all of the information you need to know to get an A on the exam. Now, there's always going to be stress in your life, whether you're in college or high school. Your family's going to want to do something. Maybe you'll get sick. Maybe you want to see your friends. There's a million different things, but they don't go away just because you're a student. So you have to use that energy and use that opportunity that you have before the exam to get ready ahead of time. The best recommendation I can give you is be completely ready for the exam 2 or 3 days before the exam. And then if you find out that, hey, I missed something or I need to learn something more, you have a grace period. Use this technique. Study at the right pace and time to prepare yourself for the exam while keeping in mind that real life happens. Now here we are at the meat of the presentation, the secret techniques. Secret technique number 1, make a cheat sheet. Now that sounds crazy. I'm not going to tell you to cheat. That's not what's happening here. A cheat sheet is a single page, a single sheet of paper that describes everything you need to know to get a perfect grade. Imagine if you were taking the exam and you had this piece of paper with you. If you could look at this paper for any question, you would get every question right just because of what was written on that paper. So make the cheat sheet. Do research, study the materials, figure out what you would need to put on that cheat sheet to get an A in the exam. And then make the cheat sheet and then memorize it. Store it in your mind. Learn everything on that cheat sheet because that cheat sheet is what you need to get an A, right? So if you have the cheat sheet and you just memorize it and it's in your mind, you've learned everything you need to know to take the exam and get a perfect grade. Now let me emphasize, making it is a studying tool. It's a secret technique. It's not a cheating technique. Don't bring it to the exam. Secret technique number 2, summarize your notes. I mentioned this earlier, but if you write a page-long summary of each day's worth of notes, you're going to know those notes better than anyone in the class. No one else does this because this is a secret technique. Only the top students do this sort of thing. Don't just copy and paste your notes either. Put everything in your own words. Pretend like you're writing an essay on a topic, and that topic is that day's class notes. This will help you understand the material and memorize it at the same time. Secret technique number 3 is to become a tutor. Now, I don't mean go sign up for a class that you're currently taking and become a tutor. No, that's silly. Try and teach the course topic to someone in the class with you while you're taking it. Call them a study buddy, call them whatever you want. But the only way you can teach a topic to someone is if you know it so well that you can be asked any question and you can get it right. You can teach it to someone. Teaching materials to others helps you understand the class better simply than just studying for it. It puts you in the mind of the professor, and it's a top secret, the top strategy that students use to get the best grades. Oh, you guys are probably thinking, what the heck is this like? Don't have fun? Yeah, I mean it. When you're in school, you're paying thousands of dollars. You're trying to get a career. You're trying to get a job so you can make money and buy the things you want, support a family, do whatever it is you want to do with your future. A lot of other people want to tell you, though, that college and university and high school is, quote unquote, the funnest time of your life. It'll be fun anyways, but don't go looking for fun. The real fun is being a successful person in life. You're there to be a professional. You're not there to be just like everyone else. You're not there to be average. You're there to get the best things for you in your life. So do what you need to do to accomplish everything that you can and get the best and top grades. What a particular phrase my mom used to say to me is that this is not a fun factor. You're not going there to have fun. You're going there to get the best grades and to do as well as you can. This is a secret. Now, why is it a secret? Because everyone else just wants to have fun. They want to go to the arcade and go to a nice show and this and that, and their grades plummet and then they have to drop out. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to get the best grades. Now, sometimes this technique is very important. Secret technique number 5. Research individual classes before you take them. Read professor ratings from online sources, from your schools, from your friends, from whoever. Find out if a professor is fair. There's not much to say about this. Sometimes the difference between getting an A and getting a bad grade is the difference between a good teacher and a bad one. It's just a fact of reality. Secret technique number 6. Now, I mentioned this before. Life has a lot of bumps. Sometimes you're not going to do well in your personal life. Sometimes you're not going to get a good grade. Sometimes, maybe always, there's going to be something that stresses you out, that makes you uncomfortable, that makes you worried or nervous or mad or angry or sad. Use that energy. All that emotional energy, it's given to you for a reason. Evolution or divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, there's a purpose to that energy, to you feeling that way. I'm here to tell you that that reason is to use that energy into studying. I remember when I was taking one of my exams, I was angry at someone. And I said, I'm going to show them how great of a grade I can get. And I used that energy, and I blew everyone out of the water just because I used that stress and that energy and that anger to get the best possible grade. This is what top students do, because everyone suffers from stress in school, but not everyone takes advantage of it. Stress can sometimes be a good thing if it can motivate you in the right way. Secret technique number 7 is to dress well on exam day. Now, this may sound silly. Why are you going to dress well on the exam day? Or what would make me do that? Well, countless studies have shown that the way you dress is directly related to how you perform. If you're wearing a suit, you'll remember better. If you feel like you're dressed like a professional, you are going to act like a professional subconsciously. You're going to remember materials more, you're going to have faster recall, you're going to answer correctly, you're going to think more clearly. Now, I'm not saying wear a suit, but I'm saying dress well. The better you dress, the better environment you create for yourself on exam day. You might have seen other people do that. You might have seen people wear dress shirts, dresses, or what have you on exam day, and think, what the heck are they doing? Those people are getting A's. That's what they're doing. Secret technique number 8. Set an agenda for each studying session. Studying doesn't count if you don't learn something. If you sit down with a book for an hour or 2 hours, or your notes or whatever you do, and then you get up and you don't even know what you read, you didn't do anything. It doesn't count. You didn't learn. What you have to do is you have to set an agenda, a goal, every time you sit down. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn this concept. I'm going to know that concept. I'm going to learn these several concepts. And you can't get up until you've accomplished that goal, until you know something cold. Set some strong but realistic goals. And no matter what happens, do not get up until you've accomplished them. Secret technique number 9. Worrying helps no one. A lot of students fall into the trap of worrying about their grades, their tests, the material, the projects, or anything else. Worry, worry, worry. Am I going to get a good grade? Am I going to get past this test? Use that energy in a productive way, but don't worry. Worrying is defined as repeatedly expressing a concern about a topic and not taking action. If something is troubling you, your lack of understanding, your lack of knowledge, the exam looks difficult, handle it. Achieve your goal by understanding and gaining knowledge and the confidence to succeed. This may mean talking to your professor. Maybe it'll mean studying harder or studying differently. But don't hesitate to do any of those things. Take strong actions to succeed and do not be a victim of the situation. Be the master of the situation. Now we're down to the last 2 slides. Motivate yourself through professional experiences is secret technique number 10. Get an internship. Shadow a professional for a day. Volunteer. Read books or blogs. You're in school to achieve success. It may seem like it's a long time away, so motivate yourself by looking at what you're working towards. That'll help you understand what you need to do to accomplish what your goals are. Imagine what you could do if you were the professional, if you were a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. Realize in your mind and in your heart that you want success. And in doing so, you'll find that you'll take any realistic plan of action to accomplish your goals. If you really want something, you will obtain it. Now I have a trick for you. A secret technique number 11, even though I only mentioned that there were 10. Really, the only technique that matters is do whatever it takes to achieve your goal. If that means studying harder, or paying more attention, or throwing yourself into exam preparation, don't hesitate. It should read here, don't hesitate to give it your best try. Perform the necessary actions that guarantee success. Leave no stone unturned. Now that's the end of my presentation. I hope I've been helpful to you. I'm going to stay online here in case you have any questions on chat. Please go ahead and chat right now, and if I don't see any questions, I will say thank you for attending, and I really want to thank the tech support team. They've really done a wonderful job here. All right, looks like we're getting a few questions. Alrighty, looks like that is it. Thank you all very much for attending. This webinar will be available through our website, including this presentation, at any time if you need to review or pass it on to friends. You can view the entire presentation. Thank you once again, and Assalamu alaikum.